In the quiet town of Redfield, Pennsylvania, nestled between a used bookstore and a family-owned diner, stood a modest little shop called Wonder Whimsy Toys. Its wooden sign, hand-painted in bright rainbow colors, swung gently in the breeze. For 37 years, this shop had been more than a business. It was a symbol of childhood magic, run with love and resilience by its dedicated owner, Harold "Harry" Jensen. Harry, a silver-haired Vietnam veteran with a booming laugh and a passion for handcrafted toys, had built the store from the ground up. He prided himself on stocking toys made by small manufacturers, many from the US, but also some lovingly crafted in Europe and Asia. Wooden trains from Germany, soft dolls from Japan, and intricate puzzles from China filled his shelves. Toys should tell a story, Harry often said. And no story should begin with a barcode from a megacorporation. But lately, that story had taken a darker turn. Since the implementation of new tariffs on imported goods by President Donald Trump, Harry's once thriving store was drowning in costs. Some tariffs had jumped as high as 25%, especially on goods from China. His best-selling educational puzzle sets, once priced affordably at $29.99, now had to be marked up to $42.99 just to break even. Parents were balking. Sales were plunging. Suppliers were backing out. Harry had written letters. He had spoken at town halls. He had even appeared on a few local TV segments, his voice full of frustration and his eyes full of worry. But nothing came of it. That was until a local journalist from Pittsburgh named Leah Harmon wrote a viral article titled "The Tariff That Stole Christmas: One Toy Store's Fight for Survival." The piece exploded online, shared by celebrities, economists, and even a few politicians. And it finally caught the attention of someone unexpected, President Donald Trump himself. 3 days later, without warning, Air Force One landed at Harrisburg International Airport. Reporters scrambled. Secret Service agents descended on Redfield. And just after lunch, a fleet of black SUVs pulled up in front of Wonder Whimsy Toys. Out stepped Donald Trump. The town froze. "Where's the toy man?" Trump boomed as he approached the shop, flanked by aides and cameras. "I heard he's got a problem with tariffs." "Let's hear it." Harry stood behind his counter, dumbfounded. For a second, the weight of decades caught in his chest. But then he looked at the orange-faced man in a navy suit standing in his store, and something clicked inside him. He stepped forward. "You're damn right I've got a problem," Harry said, voice firm but respectful. "Because of your tariffs, I might lose the store. And with it, a lifetime of memories and hard work." Trump didn't flinch. "Tariffs protect American jobs," he said. "They bring manufacturing back to our soil. You should be glad we're standing up to China." "I'd be glad if I didn't have to tell kids their favorite toys are gone," Harry snapped back. "And if I didn't have to choose between paying my electric bill or stocking my shelves." The room went quiet. The crowd outside had grown, locals, reporters, and cameras now surrounding the glass storefront. Everyone sensed something rare was unfolding, a small-town business owner confronting the President of the United States in a face-to-face showdown. Trump's eyes narrowed. "You want to do this now?" he said. Harry didn't blink. "I've waited long enough." And just like that, the debate began. Not behind closed doors, but in a toy store in front of the American people. Cameras clicked like crazy. The Secret Service shifted uneasily as more people packed around the windows of Wonder Whimsy Toys. Inside, President Donald Trump and Harold "Harry" Jensen stood nose to nose between a shelf of plush dinosaurs and a rotating rack of miniature wooden airplanes. "I built this store from scratch," Harry began, his voice rising just enough to command the room. "After Vietnam, I didn't come home to a hero's welcome. But I came home with a dream to build something that made kids happy. These toys aren't just products, they're a part of childhood." Trump folded his arms, a mix of irritation and curiosity in his expression. "I respect veterans. And I love small businesses. But tariffs are about strength, Harry. Economic strength. We've been ripped off by other countries for too long." Harry shook his head. "Strength? Mr. President, what strength does it show to crush the very people you claim to protect? My German-made train sets now cost 40% more to import. My customers can't afford them, and I can't eat the cost." Trump leaned on the counter, ignoring the whispering aides behind him. "Why not go all American? That's what I've been saying. Build it here. Stock American toys. Bring jobs home." Harry gestured around his store. "I do stock American toys. I've worked with Amish craftsmen in Ohio, doll makers in Vermont, woodcarvers in Oregon. But America doesn't make everything. Some of the most brilliant educational tools come from Asia or Europe. What am I supposed to do, pretend they don't exist?" Trump shrugged. "Adapt. That's what winners do." Harry's face tightened. You think this is about winning? My grandson cried last week because I told him I might have to close the store. What am I winning, Mr. President? The right to walk away from my life's work because Washington thinks in headlines and I think in hand-painted hobby horses. The tension in the air could be cut with a knife. Leah Harmon, the journalist whose article started this media storm, was live-streaming from her phone near the window. Over 2.4 million people were watching by now. Trump was clearly used to being the dominant voice in any room. But Harry had something the president didn't: authenticity. This wasn't politics for Harry. It was personal. You don't understand how tariffs work, Trump said suddenly, jabbing a finger on the glass countertop. They bring negotiating power. They make other countries play fair. If China wants to keep selling you those puzzle boxes, maybe they lower their prices. You pass savings on. That's how we win. Harry pointed at a toy truck made in Tennessee. You want fair? Then explain why I pay more for that truck's rubber wheels too. Because they come from Malaysia. Why is everything going up in price? Trump paused. Because we're restructuring, he said finally. Short-term pain, long-term gain. Well, the pain is real, Mr. President, Harry replied. And I'm not sure I have a long-term left in me. At that moment, Trump turned to the crowd outside the store. He opened the door and stepped into the light of 100 smartphone cameras. Reporters scrambled forward, microphones extended. The fake news says tariffs hurt small businesses, Trump said, raising his voice like he was at a rally. But the truth is we're building a stronger America. Tougher. Smarter. We love small business owners like Harry. But sometimes you've got to make hard choices for the future. Back inside, Harry watched from the window. He shook his head slowly and turned back toward his dusty counter. One of the kids outside whispered, "Is the toy store closing, Mom?" "No, honey," the mom replied softly, "not yet." Back on camera, Harry stepped outside, rejoining the president. And that's when he did something that stunned the world. He invited Trump to stay longer. "Mr. President," Harry said, "if you've got time, how about a tour of the store? Maybe you'll see what's really at stake." Trump paused and said, "Lead the way." The Secret Service cleared a narrow path as President Trump followed Harry back into Wonder Whimsy Toys. The store was never meant for such fanfare, aisles barely wide enough for two adults, shelves packed with brightly colored boxes, stuffed animals, model rockets, and learning kits. But now, the tiny space had become the stage for a national conversation. Harry led Trump down the first aisle, stopping at a set of handcrafted dolls in tiny dresses. These are made by a women's collective in the Philippines. They hand-stitch every doll and send me photos of the makers with each shipment. I call them my global aunties. Trump gave a non-committal grunt. Do you know how many American girls learn empathy and kindness through these dolls? Harry asked. And now I have to charge $15 more per doll. That makes a difference to a family shopping for birthdays. They moved on to a display of build-your-own solar robots. These are from a startup in Taiwan. They teach kids how to harness solar energy. Every time I sell one, I feel like I'm investing in the future. Trump tilted his head. So why not make these here? Because we don't. Or if we do, the cost triples. Not every family can afford a $90 robot kit, sir. Not every parent can turn a science lesson into a credit card bill. Trump said nothing, but his expression shifted slightly, just a flicker of thoughtfulness. Harry pointed to a wooden American flag puzzle near the checkout. Made in Wisconsin. No tariff. Flies off the shelf. Trump nodded. That's what I'm talking about. Why not more of that? Because even the paint on that puzzle is imported. You raise tariffs on raw materials and American makers get hit too. Tariffs don't just touch foreign goods, they ripple through every step of production. That's the part your policies don't account for. They rounded the final aisle where a miniature train set chugged along a track that wrapped around a snowy mountain. That one's from Bavaria, Harry said quietly. It's been in this store for 20 years. Every Christmas, kids press their noses against that glass and dream of Santa's sleigh. I've never marked it for sale. It's tradition. Trump stared at the train. Looks like something I had as a kid. Exactly, Harry said. Some things connect generations. But they need to be accessible. Not locked behind economic walls. Just then, a small boy walked in holding his mother's hand. He wore a red jacket, his hair still wet from melted snow. Harry smiled. Hey there, Sammy. Looking for your astronaut puzzle? The boy nodded eagerly. Harry ducked behind the counter and pulled one out, brightly colored, shaped like a rocket ship with words in both English and Mandarin. Wait, Trump interrupted, squinting. That has Chinese writing? Bilingual edition, Harry replied. Teaches language skills. Sells like crazy. Trump turned toward the cameras again, sensing an opportunity. See? We're making deals. Maybe China should give us a better rate so Sammy doesn't have to pay extra for his rocket. But Harry held up a hand. Mr. President, this isn't about deals or slogans. This is about people. Real people. Parents. Children. Store owners. The America you say you're fighting for? We're right here, on the ground. And we're struggling not because we're lazy or outdated, but because your policies treat nuance like an inconvenience. That silenced Trump for a moment. Even the cameras didn't click. Then Trump did something unexpected. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a Sharpie, and picked up one of Harry's business cards from the counter. Get this guy a meeting with Lighthizer, he said to an aide. I want him in D.C. next week. The aide blinked. With the U.S. trade representative? You heard me. Let's hear what he's got. Harry's eyes widened. And bring the doll, Trump added. The one from the global antis. 1 week later, Harry Jensen found himself stepping into a different kind of arena, Washington, D.C. The Capitol loomed, stoic and silent, as he clutched his worn leather satchel, still containing a few business cards, one of the global antis dolls, and a neatly typed proposal titled, Fair Trade, Not Fear, a small business owner's case for balanced tariffs. Escorted past marble columns and murmuring staffers, Harry entered the Eisenhower Executive Office building. Waiting inside, 2 high-level economic advisors, a staffer from the Department of Commerce, and most intimidating of all, Robert Lighthizer, the U.S. Trade Representative. So you're the toy man, Lighthizer said, his tone unreadable. Harry smiled politely. I guess so, sir. Though lately I feel more like the tariff guy. The team settled around a long mahogany table. Lighthizer flipped through Harry's proposal. You're arguing for exemptions? On what grounds? Harry stood, the doll in hand. Not just exemptions. I'm arguing for nuance. For policy that recognizes the layers of modern small business. I don't just import toys. I build memories. I build learning. I'm the bridge between a German engineer and a curious 7-year-old in Iowa. He walked to a whiteboard and began sketching a flowchart. Arrows from toy makers in Ohio, puzzle designers in China, solar kits from Taiwan, doll makers in the Philippines converging at his tiny storefront in Erie. This, Harry said, tapping the center of the web, is America. We don't just build at home. We connect. The moment we isolate, we lose. The room was silent. A commerce staffer scribbled something in her notebook. Lighthizer finally said, your proposal suggests a tariff rebate system for qualifying small businesses with verified educational or cultural impact. Harry nodded. Yes. Just like farm subsidies. We don't penalize the family farmer to get tough on imports. Why should Main Street toy stores be any different? And your proof of impact? Harry smiled, pulled out a binder full of letters, hundreds, handwritten and printed, from families, teachers, even librarians. Testimonials of kids with autism responding to sensory toys he'd stocked, rural schools using his bilingual kits, even a senior center using wooden block puzzles for memory therapy. These aren't just receipts, Harry said. They're lives. Just then, a staffer entered the room and handed Lighthizer a note. He read it, then raised an eyebrow. President Trump would like you to join him in the Rose Garden in an hour. There's going to be a press announcement. Harry blinked. Me? Lighthizer simply smiled and said, apparently you've started something. An hour later, Harry stood in the White House Rose Garden next to the most powerful man in the world. Trump approached the podium, reporters waiting, cameras live. Today, Trump began, I want to talk about something different. Not walls. Not wars. Not rallies. Today, I want to talk about toys. There was a ripple of laughter, but Trump held up a finger. Toys matter. Childhood matters. And so do the men and women who keep that spirit alive. He gestured to Harry. This is Harry Jensen. He runs a store in Erie, Pennsylvania. Not a big corporation. Not Wall Street. Just a guy who fought for this country, then built something beautiful for its kids. I went to his store. I saw what he built. I listened. He turned back to the press. So we're launching a new initiative today, the Fair Play Pilot Program. It will create a tariff credit system for small businesses that meet educational and cultural criteria. Because America First doesn't mean America only. It means America Smart. The crowd erupted in questions, camera shutters going wild. Harry was stunned. Reporters rushed him afterward, asking how he managed to change the mind of one of the most stubborn presidents in U.S. history. I didn't change his mind, Harry replied. I showed him what he hadn't seen. The weeks following the Rose Garden announcement were nothing short of a whirlwind. Harry returned to Erie to a hero's welcome. The local newspaper ran the headline, "Toy Store Owner Shakes Washington and Wins." His store, Wonder Whimsy Toys, became a destination. Customers poured in not just to buy toys, but to thank him. Teachers, parents, even skeptical business owners stopped by to say, "You made us feel heard." One morning, while placing a new batch of global anti-dolls in the display case, Harry's assistant, Tara, called out, "Harry, you need to see this." He rushed to the front counter where a CNN segment was airing on the wall-mounted TV. The headline read, "White House launches Fair Play pilot program, new hope for small importers." The story featured not just Harry but other small business owners across the country who were now eligible for tariff relief. Bookstores importing educational materials, local coffee shops sourcing sustainable beans, and a woman in Michigan who made sensory toys for special needs children using specialty fabric from India. "It's working," Tara whispered, smiling. Harry nodded, but deep inside, he knew the work had only just begun. A month later, Harry was back in Washington, this time testifying before a bipartisan congressional committee reviewing tariff impact on small businesses. C-SPAN broadcast the hearing live. He stood at the podium wearing the same modest brown blazer he'd worn the day Trump walked into his store. "I'm not a politician. I don't own a supply chain. I just own shelves. Shelves filled with joy. And I'm here to remind you all policy isn't just paper. It's people." Lawmakers listened. Some nodded. A few looked genuinely moved. When he finished, a Republican senator from Iowa leaned forward. "Mr. Jensen, I'm curious. You managed to push President Trump into supporting something even he didn't fully grasp at first. What was your strategy?" Harry smiled. "I treated him like a customer. I showed him the story behind the price tag." That got a chuckle from the room and applause. Back in Erie, the changes took root in real time. Parents noticed price tags drop a little. Schools returned to buying educational kits in bulk. Local vendors began collaborating with Harry on new product lines, confident that the business wouldn't go under due to unpredictable tariffs. Even better, Harry's advocacy inspired others. A group of independent toy store owners across the country formed a coalition, the Main Street Makers. Their mission, to keep small businesses at the table whenever national policy was debated. And every week, Harry received more letters. Not from customers, but from business owners, some of whom had been teetering on the edge of closure. One letter read, "Dear Harry, I own a small science toy shop in Portland. I almost closed last year due to import costs. Then I saw your story. I applied for the Fair Play credit and got approved last week. My shop's still open because you stood up. Thank you for giving me permission to fight. Then one snowy afternoon in late February, Harry was sorting inventory when a large envelope arrived from Washington. Inside was a letter hand-signed. "The White House. Mr. Jensen, you may not believe it, but you reminded me of something I sometimes forget. America isn't just made in factories or voted on in Congress. It's lived every day on streets like yours in towns like Erie. We didn't always agree, but I heard you, and maybe that's the beginning of what this country needs more of. Best, Donald J. Trump, President of the United States." Harry folded the letter slowly, a weight in his chest. Not of pride, but of responsibility. He turned to look at his store. A mother laughed as her son chased a wind-up dinosaur. A teacher jotted notes beside the science kits. The global anti-dolls sat lined in the window watching quietly. And in that moment, Harry realized something profound. He hadn't just changed a policy. He had changed the conversation. Not with noise. Not with slogans. But with truth. Truth wrapped in cardboard, covered in bright colors, and held in the hands of a child.